My wife and daughter often, frequently, complain that when our larger family gets together for holidays, for birthdays, whatever it may be, the conversation always only goes to sports and politics. And the three of us are all coaches in a matter of fashion. We work with different clients and different demographics and different issues, but we're all coaches. And I now think to sports and politics. Sports where coaches are, readily acknowledged, heralded, perhaps beyond what they should for the success of their team, and politics where we probably could use a little more coaching to help them be more successful, more human, more accessible, less egomaniac, less narcissistic, whatever the word might be. But we don't necessarily see it so much in politics. But we certainly see it in sports. And growing up, my first exposure to coaching as it relates to sports was in youth sports. Probably just about the worst place that anybody could ever learn about coaching. Because it's not really about coaching in youth sports. Often it is about arguing with the umpire. It is about winning and not necessarily developing your team. There's a little bit of learning in there. There's a little bit of teaching. But too often, the people who go into youth coaching, whether it's Little League, youth basketball, whatever it may be, they're not really about coaching. Until get a little bit older, the coaching really has to start to come in, and then the coaching really becomes more about instruction as opposed to what we in business would think about traditional coaching. Now, I'm a little bit of a sports junkie, so for me, I think back to the time I was growing up, early to mid 1970s in New York. We both had great examples of coaches and leaders, and some not so great. But I recently saw a documentary about Bill Bradley and the New York Knicks, who, in their heyday of the late 1960s, early 1970s, were coached by Red Holtzman. Now, Red Holtzman was a 5'10", 175-pound player in the 1950s. Hardly what we would consider now as a prototypical basketball player. Probably couldn't even make a college team these days at 5'10" and 175 pounds. But what Bill Bradley talks about in terms of Red Holtzman as a coach was that he put people in the right position and the right place for them to be most successful. So for Bill Bradley, who was not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most skilled, Red Holtzman was able to figure out, how do I take Bill Bradley and pair him up with Willis Reed and Walt Frazier and Dave DeBusschere, all with a different skill set, and get them to come together as a team, right? So thinking about coaching from developing the team being greater than the sum of its individual parts. Red Holtzman was able to take these disparate pieces and start to figure out how to coach them, how to meld them, how to bring them together as a team to be more successful, to be as successful as they could be, while acknowledging and recognizing the individual talents and traits and abilities that each of the individual players had. So now I think to my own background, having done a lot of engineering work, a lot of technical work for organizations and municipal agencies and the like over the years. And I think about the coaching I do with my clients who probably have very much the same kind of a profile that I did. I probably still do. They came from a technical background, structured thinking, process oriented. Often the idea around having to be right comes up quite frequently. But as my career progressed and I started to move away from the pure technical, I recognized that the coaching I was doing was very much aligned with the kind of ways that we built our projects, the way we designed our projects, thought about our projects, implemented our projects. So often I start to fall back on what we think of as the GROW method, right? So the G is for the goal. What is our goal? in construction and engineering, we are thinking about what is our end product? What are we trying to solve from a problem perspective? Same thing happens in coaching. So when I'm coaching my clients, what is it they're trying to achieve? What's their goal? And part of that conversation is, why is that goal important, right? What does it mean to them if they can actually achieve it? Why are they pursuing it? The R in GROW stands for reality. What is their reality? What are they actually dealing with right now? What is observably true? What is their current situation? How can they evaluate it from a sort of a clinical and accurate perspective? And so what's their reality? What are their options, right? So the O in options. So the O really starts to think about what are the possible ways I can get there, right? Some of them are disproportionately expensive. Some of them are hard to achieve. Some of them are complicated. Some of them may be, much more simple. So what are the options? And helping my clients think through what are those options and what are they willing to do, right? Which starts to go into the W of the GROW method, right? The what and the when and the why, and I'll throw an H in there, the how, right? So we start to think about the accountability piece, which is the last step in that coaching process. So getting them to acknowledge what the goal is, what's reality, what are the options, how can I shrink that gap between where I am now or where I want to be, and then the W, when, and the what, right? So it's baking in the actual plan and then holding my clients accountable for doing what they are telling me that they're going to do. So in a very simple way, the GROW method and much of how I coach my clients is aligned with how we work in engineering and design and construction, right? It's a process. There is a structure to it. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that structure and process works exactly the same for every different client. Every client is coming with a different set of skills and traits and abilities and willingness to do certain things. Tolerance of discomfort, of pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. So every client is individual. Everyone comes with a different set of individual traits. Just as Red Holtzman was able to figure out how to put together a successful New York Knicks team that beat the Lakers twice in 3 years, my goal is to work with my clients individually, figure out what is their unique power, what's their secret sauce, and then start to help them figure out how they can use that to their benefit in order to get from where they are now to where they want to be. And so that is very much how I work with my clients. I love them. I love working with folks who are process oriented and sort of think in a linear way, because in many respects I think in the same way. So I can identify and empathize with them in terms of what they're struggling with and how they may be able to get there in as quick and painless way as possible.